Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back here to today's edition of Intuitive Angling, and much appreciated you guys checking out today's video. And guys, today we're going to be talking about catching bass during bright sunny days. You can see right now, guys, we have got not a cloud in the sky here. I'm actually sitting out here in the Walmart parking lot waiting for Kim to get some shopping done in there. Excellent time to talk about catching bass on bright sunny days. Also, guys, before we get started, two quick things. Just like to invite everybody to please consider hitting that subscribe button here at Intuitive Angling. Free and easy to do so, man. If you like the content, like the channel, and want to help out, and don't want to spend any money, that's a great way to do it. And also, guys, I'd like to invite you to please swing by the link in the description. Check out my Fish the Moment lake map breakdowns. I've got the breakdowns up for this fall right now. Great resources to learn more about any lake you want to fish across the country. So I'll have all those links in the description. So boys are in the truck here, so if the video gets interrupted here, you sort of know what's going on. Okay, bright sunny days. Let's talk a little bit about this. This is a video that I could literally spend all day long talking about it, because there's so many different variables. There's so many different nuances and little situational differences. So for sake of brevity, to keep this video from going on forever, I'm going to talk about some really foundational pieces of advice on this, like the basis of stuff, and then we can go into some details more a little bit later in the year. So, okay, let's talk about why bright sunny days, how it affects bass. Now, anytime that you have a bright sunny day, the light penetration in the water is greater. So the light intensity is going to vary on a bright sunny day based upon your atmospheric conditions, as far as like how much haze is in the water, you know, the sunlight angle, different times of the year, and the position of the sun in the sky. Wind will also have a factor with that, and also how structure is positioned across the lake. But I sort of want to go through all four seasons real quickly and give you guys a good foundation to how sunlight affects the fish and some things you can do. First of all, when you're talking about winter fishing, like December through March, something like that, the sunlight is actually sort of a good thing, because anytime that you got really cold water, it seems like to me that the maximum light penetration in cold water is better. Gives the fish better visibility. I don't think it has anything to do with warming the water, but it seems like to me when you're dealing with cold water bass, that light penetration really activates those fish more. I've seen this over and over again. Say, for example, if I go fishing in the wintertime, it's usually always pretty slow fishing for the first 2 or 3 hours in the morning and then in the afternoon. But the best periods are like during the day when the sunlight is bright right overhead. Just seems like it activates the fish a lot more. Now, this begins to change a little bit as you get into the springtime of the year. As those water temperatures warm up into the 50s and 60s, sunlight is a really positive thing, because during a situation like this in the spring, those bass are wanting to move shallow. Just biologically, they want to move shallow in and around the spawn. And anytime that you have bass in shallow water with bright sunny conditions, you're going to have a little bit of warming condition. You know, the water is beginning to warm up, daylight hours are getting longer. You know, the bright sun is going to warm those areas up, especially in those areas that are protected from the wind and are catching a lot of sunlight. And this can activate the fish. Shade per se, when you're talking about a bright sunny day in the springtime of the year, it may or may not be a factor, but I have seen the fishing being just as good on a bright sunny day with no shade as it is, you know, whenever you do have shade. Now, it really begins to change as you start to get when that water temperature starts to warm up in the 70s, because then a bright sunny day is going to have a really big impact on where the fish position at and how they're to be caught. Again, in the winter time of the year and the springtime of the year, you know, it's actually can be a positive, the sun, because the warming and the light intensity makes them more active. It doesn't really go like that so much as it warms up. So anytime that water temperature is over the 70s, say from May up until September or October, sunlight can be sort of a negative or a positive depending upon the type of cover. Bright sun on structure that does not have any shade is going to make the fishing a little bit tougher. Fish just don't bite as good, and fish really start to gravitate towards any type of a shady area if the water is like less than 10 foot deep and you have some shallow cover. In other words, what I'm talking about, your shady banks are always better. The shade from a boat dock, underneath a boat dock, the shade from an overhanging tree, a bank that catches a lot of shade like early in the morning. These are always prime areas to fish, once that water temperature gets over 70. Now, on the other end of the spectrum, if you're fishing deeper in the summertime, like the water temperature's over 70 and you're fishing like over 15 or 20 foot deep, a bright sunny day can actually be better because, again, that bright light intensity gives more visibility in the water even deeper. So let's say, for example, you got a bright bluebird sunny day like this, the water visibility, or excuse me, the water depth is 20 foot deep, you're catching them off the end of a point on a big crankbait or a worm. That can be a positive because it makes that light penetration, to some level, make the baits more visible in that deeper water. So again, it's all relative to the conditions you have as far as the water clarity and the water depth you're fishing. And then again, finally guys, once that water temperature starts dropping down below 70 in the fall time of the year, this is another situation where I found out that the bright sun and the combination of shade with it is not quite as important. The bright sun can actually make it a little bit better sometimes. Water temperatures are starting to fall into the 50s, 60s, and sometimes that bright sun a little bit later in the day can activate those shallow fish. Now, this is true for largemouth and spotted bass, but if you're dealing with smallmouth bass, you can throw everything I told you just out the window. Smallmouth are their own species, and smallmouth get active on bluebird days like this. They get really, really active because you can go up on a Great Lake smallmouth lake like Lake St. Clair, Lake Champlain. You can have a bright bluebird sky like we have right now, and like if you have calm wind conditions, they'll hammer a topwater. Those big smallmouth will hammer a topwater or spinnerbait or whatever. They have a completely different mood and personality than largemouth bass, so that's sort of an anomaly with that. But overall, guys, quick video here. Don't want to spend a lot of time on this. One good rule of thumb is if the water temperature is under 70 degrees, a bright sunny day is not going to affect you that much in terms of having to gravitate towards shade. But if that water temperature is over 70 degrees, always hunt the shade. Fish the shade all the time, unless you're fishing deep. And if you just remember those two foundational points there, it's going to help you guys be a lot more consistent. So anyway, guys, hope you're doing well. We'll talk later.